If I had known that the moment I stepped out of that party, I would walk straight into the life I was always meant to live, I wouldn't have cried. I would have smiled, because leaving him was the first step to finding myself. I should have sensed the shift the moment we entered the ballroom. It was subtle at first, like a faint tremor beneath polished marble floor. Something only your heart notices before your mind catches up. The room glowed with warm amber lights, chandeliers dripping crystals like hanging stars, and people dressed in glittering gowns and sharp suits. It should have been a beautiful night, one of pride and celebration. Amir's project was finally launching, something he'd worked on for over a year, sacrificing weekends, sleep, and almost me. But even then, I never complained. I loved him enough to understand the demands of his career. I believed he saw me not as a burden, but as the woman who stood beside him through every difficult climb. Yet, as we stepped further into that world he worked so hard to belong to, I realized something painful. He didn't want me beside him tonight. His hand, once warm and reassuring, was cold and loose in mine. He held it like a formality, like an accessory he forgot to leave in the car. His eyes scanned the room, searching for someone who clearly wasn't me, and though I tried to dismiss the growing unease in my chest, it clung to me like the perfume I wore, impossible to shake. We hadn't even reached the center of the hall when she appeared. Rania. She walked toward us with the confidence of a woman who expected the world to part for her. Clad in a shimmering gold gown that hugged her perfectly toned figure, she carried an aura so strong, it made people turn their heads before she even spoke. And when she smiled, God, it was the kind of smile that said she already knew she'd won something. Or someone. Amir, she said, her voice soft and sweet like honey, dripping with ownership. Her hand landed on his arm as naturally as if it belonged there, and he didn't move it. Her eyes flickered to me for barely half a second, a quick, almost dismissive scan like a jeweler inspecting a stone and deciding it wasn't worth anything. I expected Amir to introduce me. I waited for the words, "This is Zara, my girlfriend." I waited for him to step closer to me, for his arm to wrap around my waist, for anything that would show the world I wasn't an outsider. But all he said was, "Rania, I didn't expect you so early." She laughed softly, leaning in as though whispering a secret meant only for him. Well, I couldn't wait. They're all at the very important person table, waiting for you. For you, not you both. He didn't correct her. He didn't glance at me with the reassurance I desperately sought. Instead, he let out a breath, almost relieved she was there. Right, I should go greet them. He turned to me but wouldn't meet my eyes. Zara, you can mingle. I'll just be a moment. A moment. I forced a smile, even though a strange hollowness spread in my chest. Take your time. He nodded, already drifting toward her. She didn't wait for me to say goodbye. She simply hooked her arm with his and guided him across the hall as if she had every right to. 45 minutes. I stood alone, pretending not to care, pretending to check messages I didn't have. The people who glanced my way weren't whispering, "Who is she and why is she alone?" The music swelled around me but felt like static in my ears. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter floated. Dancers twirled. And in the center of it all sat a mirror next to her. Always next to her, leaning in when she spoke, smiling when she touched his arm, whispering something that made her blush. Every time I blinked, I prayed the next time I opened my eyes, I'd see him searching for me, missing me, remembering me, but he never did. The longer I watched, the smaller I felt. Not just invisible and wanted, like I was the embarrassing shadow he hoped wouldn't follow him into the room of his success. Then it happened. Rania leaned forward, her fingers grazing his jaw, as she said something, and before I could breathe, she kissed his cheek slow, lingering, intimate. He froze, just for a heartbeat, then he laughed it off, brushing her hair gently away from her face, before turning back to the table. That was the moment something inside me snapped, not loud enough for anyone else to hear, but loud enough to shatter the illusion I had lived in for 3 years. The world blurred around me. The lights, the music, the people, they all dissolved into a quiet, devastating truth. He didn't choose me. He didn't defend me. He didn't protect what we had. He didn't care about how I felt standing alone in a room where he should have held my hand the tightest. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. Pain taught me one thing. Some exits don't need doors slammed, they need silence. I turned, my heels clicking softly against marble, each step a farewell wrapped in dignity. My throat burned. My vision swam. My chest tightened so painfully I thought I might collapse. But I kept walking. Out of the hall, out of his night, out of a love that had already ended without telling me. Cold air greeted me outside, sharp and sobering. The sky was dark, the stars hidden, and for a moment I felt just as lost. My phone buzzed. Amir. 7 missed calls. 3 messages. 1 voice note. I didn't open any of them. Not out of cruelty, out of survival. I hailed a cab, my voice barely a whisper as I gave the driver my address. But halfway there, something in me shifted. Maybe it was the weight of humiliation, or perhaps it was the sudden clarity. That came after heartbreak, but I knew going home wasn't enough. Home still had memories of him, his scent on the couch, his jacket by the door, his promises tucked into every quiet corner. I couldn't breathe in that space anymore. So instead of going home, I asked the driver to take me to a hotel, one far from everything familiar. I checked in, with trembling hands, but once I shut the door behind me, an eerie calm washed over me. For the first time in 3 years, I didn't have to wait for his messages, his explanations, his excuses. I sat on the bed, staring at the silent phone on the nightstand, and whispered to myself, I deserve better. The next morning, I didn't go back. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't explain. I didn't leave a note. I simply disappeared, not to punish him, but to rediscover myself. And in that quiet disappearance, something unexpected happened. I finally began to heal when Amir fell to his knees the moment he saw me. I realized something: sometimes the person who breaks you is the one who is most destroyed by your absence. The day Amir found me, the sky hung heavy and gray, as if it too carried a storm waiting to break. I had spent the morning helping arrange fresh pastries in the bakery's front display, the familiar warmth of cinnamon and sugar, grounding me in the quiet life I'd built over the last few weeks. A life where no one knew my heartbreak, where no one whispered behind my back, where I didn't feel small or discarded or replaceable. Here, I was simply Zara, the girl who rose before sunrise, kneaded dough with the elderly widow who owned the shop, and learned to steer a small fishing boat from the local fishermen in the evenings. My phone remained off, tucked in a drawer beside my bed, a symbol of the past I'd left behind, and the freedom I'd chosen. But healing is never linear. Some days I woke up feeling light, as if my lungs finally remembered how to breathe without pain. Other days, the memory of that night, the golden dress, the whispering crowd, the kiss hit me like a tidal wave. But I kept going, because moving forward was the only thing that reminded me I still had worth. I was sweeping the courtyard, after closing, when I heard footsteps, rushing toward the gate. I didn't think much of it. The bakery often had late customers knocking for leftovers, but then I heard it, my name, spoken in a voice I thought I'd forgotten. Zara. The broom slipped from my fingers. My heart lurched violently against my ribs before freezing altogether. I turned slowly, afraid that the universe was playing some cruel trick on me. But it wasn't. Amir stood there, not the polished, confident man I had left behind. He was disheveled, his eyes sunken with exhaustion, dark circles shadowing his face. His once neatly trimmed beard had grown uneven, his clothes wrinkled as if he had slept in them. His hands trembled slightly as he held something, a printed paper, fluttering in the wind. A missing flyer. My missing flyer. He stared at me as if he couldn't believe I was real, as if I were a ghost he had chased across cities. I found you, he whispered, voice cracking. Thank God he swallowed hard, unable to continue. I felt rooted to the ground, 1,000 emotions crashing inside me. Anger, pain, shock, confusion, and somewhere buried underneath it all, grief. Not grief for losing him, but grief for the woman who once loved him so deeply she would have done anything to keep him safe from heartbreak. He took a shaky step forward. Zara, please don't disappear again. I thought something terrible happened to you. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't. His voice broke entirely. He pressed a trembling hand to his forehead. I was losing my mind. I didn't speak. I didn't know how. The words tangled in my throat like thorns. He lifted the flyer. I put these everywhere. Police stations, hospitals. I called your friends, your co-workers. I even went to your old neighbors. No one knew where you were. Of course they didn't. I hadn't told anyone. He let out a shuddering breath. I thought maybe you left the country, or that you... He swallowed, unable to say the next words. I blamed myself. I still do. Why are you here? My voice finally found its way out, quieter than I intended. He closed his eyes, as if preparing himself for a blow. Because I needed to make things right. Because you deserve answers. Because I can't breathe knowing I hurt you that way. He stepped forward but stopped a few feet away, as if afraid I'd vanish if he came to. Close that night, he said softly. Everything you saw, it wasn't what you think. A bitter laugh threatened to escape me. I saw you with her. I saw the way she touched you. I saw the kiss. It wasn't a kiss I wanted, he cut in desperately. It was a business alliance my boss was pushing for. Rainia's family investing in our expansion. I was trying to handle it professionally. I didn't want to embarrass her in front of everyone. She kissed me without warning. I froze. You didn't push her away, I said, the memory still sharp as glass. His face twisted in regret. Because I didn't want to start a rumor. I didn't want to jeopardize the deal. I know it sounds pathetic, but in that moment, I cared more about my career than your feelings. Pain filled his eyes, and that was the worst mistake I have ever made. A cold wind blew between us, carrying the scent of rain and regret. You should have introduced me, I said quietly. You should have chosen me. I know, his voice barely held together. I failed you. I failed us. And when you left, everything else fell apart. I couldn't function at work. I lost the promotion. My boss cut me out of meetings. My mother said she'd never seen me so broken. He took another step closer, rain beginning to fall lightly as if the sky itself leaned in to listen. I didn't come here to ask you to come back, he said, though the tremor in his voice betrayed the hope he was desperately holding on to. I came because I needed to tell you the truth. Because you deserved that. Because losing you made me realize I had been taking your presence for granted. And that thought destroyed me. My heart tightened painfully. You hurt me, Amir. He flinched. I know, and if you never forgive me, I'll understand. But Zara, his voice softened into a whisper. I love you, I always have. Rain began falling harder now, dampening our clothes, slipping down our faces like tears. Neither of us wanted to shed. I forgive you, I said at last, the words tasting bittersweet on my tongue. Hope lit his eyes like a dying flame bursting back to life. But forgiveness doesn't mean I can go back to the person I was with you, I continued, my voice steady. I found myself here. I learned I can stand on my own. I'm not the woman who waits in corners for someone to choose her anymore. He blinked rapidly, fighting the emotions, crowding his face. So what does that mean for us? It means, I whispered, that right now, I choose me. The rain fell harder, thunder rumbling in the distance. Amir pressed a hand to his lips, as if holding back a sob. Then, slowly, painfully, he sank to his knees on the wet ground. I'll wait for you, he choked out. No matter how long, I'll wait. My heart clenched, but I shook my head gently. Don't wait for me. Heal for you. He stared at me, devastated. Is this goodbye? For now, I said softly. Maybe forever. I don't know. He nodded slowly, each movement heavy with grief, then stood on trembling feet. He looked at me one last time, memorizing, regretting breaking, and walked away. I watched him go, feeling the ghost of our past slip out of my grasp. And when I finally stepped back inside the warm bakery, the scent of cinnamon wrapped around me like hope itself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's backup plan. I wasn't a woman abandoned at a party. I wasn't the girl whose heart shattered quietly. I was the woman who rebuilt herself. And though my disappearance destroyed him, my rediscovery saved me.